Welcome to the Hopenning, the place where hope is happening, with your hosts Fran and Marina Theron-Monnery. For more information about Fran and Marina, or to apply to be a guest on the show, please go to our website www.hopenning.com. The Hopenning is for informal purposes only and is based on the research of your hosts, Fran and Marina. They, as well as their guests, are not responsible for any losses, damages, or liabilities that may arise from this podcast, which is not intended to replace any professional medical advice or care by medical professionals you are currently utilizing. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. Fran and Marina here at the Hopenning number 85. Fran, it's a privilege to be here with you and bring you some hope today. Today, we really want to talk about the inner child. That is something that's been out there quite a bit recently, and it's something that Fran and I intimately work with our clients when that inner child is injured. So, Fran, tell us about the inner child.
So there's thought leaders out there that believe the inner child is a metaphor for everything within us. It's one inner child. Then there are other thought leaders out there, like internal family systems, that believe, Marina, that the inner child is many children. And so who knows, really, right? When we work with the inner child, we work with individual moments, stories in our client's past that bubble up to the surface. So it could be a variety of ages, or it could be young adulthood. It's whatever is in the past. And so personally, when I talk about the inner child, I talk about the specific child in the past. So it could be a 2-year-old, a 5-year-old, an 8-year-old, whatever the client's subconscious mind is bringing up. And that's my version of inner child. So Marina, how about yourself? How do you classify the inner child?
To me, if in my own personal experience, Fran, I believe that each one of us get born into this life on a perfect slate, mostly. And we come into this world with so much expectation and hope for achieving goals and whatever else. But over time, things happen to us. And every time those things happen, it's like an onion's layer. Another layer gets put on that is a mask that we start to wear that is not our true selves. And a lot of times those layers are associated with hurts, preconceptions, interpretations of events that happens in our life, and things that we internalize. And it starts to change us. It starts to take away our freedom, our childlike freedom. And that is the inner child. And when that inner child gets injured, years later, as an adult, things start to go wrong in our lives through what you and I do. We regress them back to that point where this happened. For example, I had a client this morning who has never in her life been able to have a successful relationship. When we went and saw what happened, she had a very abusive stepdad who would not allow her to have a boyfriend. And she started to believe that none of the boys that would come into her life and try to date her would stick around and fight for her and say, I don't care how your dad treats you, I'm here to fight for you. And it's almost as if she's longing for that all her life. So there's a belief in her that nobody can love me enough to fight for me, to stand up for me. And so that part of her inner child is just tangled up in miscommunication with where she is today.
And Marina, you had said something quite significant. You said that wounds in adulthood bring up that inner child, and the story from that childhood, which often is, it's not conscious, often is not conscious. And so I find clients quite amazed that at what particular event in their childhood, which could have been significant or could have been something so insignificant, made such a profound effect on where they are right now as an adult. One thing that I have found is, like you said, the father wounding. So, yeah, for women, I found in the practice that if our client had a strange relationship, not a loving, caring, kind relationship with the dad, it often results in relationship problems in the young adult or even older, older people, older women, throughout their lifetime, which is quite sad. Like when I think about it, how just those small amount of years can really have a profound effect on how beautiful, intelligent, wonderful women have such a hard time later in relationships.
Interesting, Fran, because you work with this and you will know this off your heart. Every child wants one thing, and it's attention. Because when they get attention, they feel loved. When they do not get that attention, they create roles for themselves, and one would become the overachiever, the child that always does everything well because they get praise. The one would become the one that's always sick, because if they're sick, they get the cuddles, they get, here's some medicine, here's, oh, let me check on you, you're feeling okay. That's attention. You get the one that is the rebel, the mischievous one, that even negative attention is still attention. Or they sometimes become the jokester. They're the one that always makes like jokes and fun about everything because they get laughs. And then the last one is the caregiver. If they can just keep everybody happy around them, be invisible, just make sure everybody is happy, they would go out of their way to go check that this person is cared for and that person is cared for, sometimes at the expense of themselves. So those are the 4 roles that kids would assume just to get attention, because attention to them equals love.
Marina, have you ever had a person, it could be a friend, it could be a family member, it could be whoever, who says, no, that's that I did not experience that. Nothing like that ever happened. I didn't fit any of those roles. Have you ever had anybody
No,
tell you that?
I've never had one.
I had, right? I did, because I was explaining how, kids will take the role on at birth. It's just their way of getting the attention from their parent. And the parents could be the most wonderful, loving,
Right.
kind, compassionate, sensitive parents. And yet every child will take on a role.
Right.
And so she's the oldest child in the family. She had 3 younger brothers. And she said, no, I didn't do that. I wasn't the high achiever. I didn't take a role on. And I'm like, okay. And then she asked her brothers, who were younger, and she's my age, right? She asked her brothers if they thought that maybe she had, and they all said yes. They all said that she was the high achiever, which shocked her because she never felt like the high achiever.
Yeah.
She didn't feel that way, but her brothers looking at her knew it.
Now, Fran, have you ever encountered children or clients who eventually would try to be the high achiever and not get what they want from that, and then move to be the sick one or the caregiver or the rebel? Have you ever had that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think about myself, right? I don't know what I was born as, but you know, my family history, we had many, many kids in our family. So we had lots of roles being played out. And so I look at my just a little bit older sister, and so she and I were always in the same grade in school, and things came easy for her. She just seemed to get it. And I struggled. I did struggle. I felt like I was not competent enough. So I had to work super hard. So I didn't fit the role of the high achiever. So I became this caring, kind, compassionate person until I became a teenager, which I just jumped into the rebel role, and I took it on quite nicely, but it just wasn't a good fit for me. I didn't like that. And thank the good Lord, I haven't had the sick one yet in here, thank the good Lord. And I try to make sure that I don't fall into that, because it can be easy to fall into the role of the needy one because of my health. It can be super easy because if I do get attention, because, and you know me, Marina, I've had a couple of near experiences in this last year with my aneurysm and with my broken kneecap. It's easy to fall into that role of, gee, I'm just not feeling good.
Yeah. And it was the opposite for me because I was born early. I was born sickly. I was in an incubator. I had colic, and then through my life, like I was the sick one. But roles changed. But Fran, what about children who grow up with narcissistic abuse? How much do you deal with that?
I haven't had a lot of experience with it, Marina. But have you had more experience with that?
I've had a lot. I've had a lot. And even this morning, I had a client who, it's a man, and he actually sent me a TikTok video exactly about the inner child being bruised. Because, you know, I was thinking about my grandson lately and how grateful I am to be his grandma, because I spoil him rotten. There is nothing that he can do that will ever make me scold him. He is perfect. And then my son called me the other day, and he was doing something quite deliberately. So they had to discipline him. They had to show him, okay, if you're going to behave like that, this is the consequence. And he was angry. He went and he locked himself in the bathroom. And then I thought to myself, my goodness, you know, here's this perfect child, and yet it's their job to discipline him. But when you are the child and you grow up with narcissistic abuse, there's sometimes never really a reason for that. I don't even want to use the word discipline, for the anger and the assault, that whether it's verbal or physical, that comes your way. And all that child does is internalize it. And the layers upon layers of hurt that comes with that is vast. And it is in adulthood, those children, those people, those adults are still so bruised that it takes really a lot for them. It's almost as if they have to completely change their personality, because the old bruised personality is the one that's so used to being hit over and over and over again. So, for example, you don't play tennis well enough. So now I'm going to scream at you and say, you embarrass me. I'm not going to come to your match anymore. And then, but next time next time you win the match, and then I would find something else that you did inside that match. For example, scratch your nose funny, that parent would focus on. And the child can never win. They can never win, because a narcissist, it's about them. And if the child does well, they get praise when they make the narcissist look good. But if they don't do well, it's all about the perception. That it's all about the way they make the narcissistic parent look. And if they do anything to make that narcissistic parent look badly, doesn't matter what it is, even if they do their best, there's some abuse that happens. And it can be very psychological. It can be very sarcastic, but all of it is to let them know that they have not been good enough. And the tremendous complex trauma that happens from that is really, unfortunately, way too common today.
And you know, I know people in my life, I haven't had them as clients, but I know people in my life that because they had narcissistic parents, you know how we talked about the roles, you know, the high achiever or the caregiver or the, you know, the sick one or the rebel. When you have a narcissistic parent, it seems like that role is intensified so much. I mean, extreme high achievement and never still feeling good enough, or intense caregiver, like you're the one that's gonna be, you know, finding a cure for, or, you know, intense caregivers, but never feeling worthy enough. It's insanity, really. And nobody understands it unless they get down deep and find out the trauma
Well, I'm
that
grateful
child
because I
lived.
think there are more conversations about this specifically today. There's actually quite a lot of people I follow about this. There's one of our colleagues that Caroline Swanson, who specializes in narcissistic abuse, and I've learned so much from her, because there is, for example, if you've been screamed at a lot in your life and you now go into a new relationship and you think, okay, everything is okay, and then this new partner or new potential partners, there's something that happened in traffic, and he starts to scream in the same way that would remind you of the narcissistic parent who screamed at you, you will have a physical response. It's literally a physical response. And unfortunately, some women would then go, okay, this guy's like my dad, I should marry him. And unless they can break free from that, and it's really breaking that cycle again, and it takes a lot. It takes a lot. And, you know, you and I both grew up in the culture of you should honor your father and your mother. And when they get to that point where, well, if I keep on honoring the person that's been kicking me all my life, where am I? And to help them to break free from that is profound. To heal themselves first, and then from there see where the relationship goes. And then I think ultimately is if you can understand that everybody shows up in your life to really just teach you how to master this life. And it's hard, Fran. And I know I've had clients who would become angry at me and say, how can you say that? You don't know what this person did to me. I understand. I understand better than you would ever think. But it's growth. It's growth. And if we don't grow away from that abuse, we keep on going through that cycle over and over and over again until we completely lose ourselves. So, yeah, interesting subject.
I think about the people who are living in tent cities with extreme addictions, and you know, they have nothing left. there's always a backstory.
Mhm.
They didn't get born that way.
Yeah.
Right? And unfortunately, that's where they ended up.
Right.
And, you know, it's a joy to be able to work with clients and to get to the core and change the story,
Mhm.
change the, because if we can change the story, we can change the outcome.
Right.
Mhm.
So that's a great point, Fran. So tell our viewers about how do you help heal the inner child?
Mhm. So after we hypnotize our client, we'll take, they actually will come up with the event in their life, right? Under, it's the subconscious mind, right? It's not the conscious, it's the subconscious mind that's ready to deal with that memory. And so they will talk about it. They relive it as though it's a movie that they're watching. And so, yes, it's them in the movie, but they're one step back away from the movie. And so you and I, Marina, we can watch a movie and we can cry and we can laugh and we can get angry or whatever. And it's the same for our clients. And so as although it's them in the movie, it's not as though it's physically hurting them. And now they can look at the event with adult set of eyes. So we regress them to 2 or 3 or whatever it needs, whatever the client, wherever we need to get them to. And then we change that story because we explain, and they can see it for themselves, how unjust, how it was just not good parenting, or, sometimes it's a school episode, or sometimes it's bullying in the playground or whatever. Young young mothers or whatever, and they can see for themselves how unjust it was. And then we change the story, we reframe it, and we change it so that that story no longer has power over them and never will again. And under hypnosis, because we're dealing now with the subconscious, uh, it's so much easier to tell the subconscious this than it is to take the logical conscious mind and tell them that.
Mhm.
And once we have changed it, we've reframed it, and then we tell them the right things. We tell them the things that they needed to hear as that small child or teenager or whatever it was, and rewire their brain in such a way that they believe it. And that's the beauty of it. They begin to believe it and live it as a different person. It's
So
profound.
something I love to do with my clients is to, as we talked earlier, my belief is that each one of us gets born with a clean slate. And if you can take them back to that clean slate and ask them, what was it? What was your clean slate? Who were you in that clean slate? And I start to tell them, oh, I was beautiful. I was perfect. I was strong. I could speak freely. I could express myself. I was believable. I was significant. And you could help them, I want to say, remember that. And then upgrade the client to that. And now revisit all those hurtful situations and help them to feel now the strength within them. That it's always been there. I had a client who has been in an abusive situation where her father would scream at her when her grades were not good enough. And she was actually supposed to be diagnosed with ADHD. But it was too much of a scandal in the family to diagnose this child with ADHD because no, my children cannot look like that. My children has to be perfect. And so when she didn't do well enough in school, her father would lock her in her bedroom and tell her, you're going to stay in the bedroom and study, without ever giving her the tools how to study. And she had this, she remembered in that bedroom, she had the secret thought, Ask her, what was your secret thought? Her secret thought was imagining telling her father off and getting really strong within herself and daydreaming about how she's going to say to him, listen, enough. You are not treating me like this anymore. I now have a voice, I have a choice, and you need to help me. You need to be the parent and help me. So in the upgrade, when she told me that, I said, okay, then become that now. Become that. Bring that power, that desire of power that's been in you even as a little girl. Bring that out now. And if you can imagine for a moment that you could tell that parent those things, and you have, because in situations like that, they get robbed of their freedom of expression. Because if she would have opened her mouth and he's done this, he would hit her. So she knew, I cannot say, but I need help. To him, I need help. He would hit me. All I needed to do was to go to my bedroom and pretend to learn, and I didn't know how. So get your freedom of expression. And in this situation, can you tell him exactly how you felt? Can you actually tell him that he's the one that failed, that he's the one that didn't parent you, that he's the one that couldn't acknowledge that you needed that extra help, that no, you're not stupid. No, you're not. Some of the wording was, you are a scandal to the family. And how did God punish me by giving me a daughter like you? So that's some of the wording that came out. And to turn that around and say, no, actually look in the mirror, because everything you are accusing me of are actually the things you are guilty of. And that powerful upgrade just resulted in the most profound change in this woman. And just feeling that she has the right to stand up, even now, decades later, she has the right to say, actually, no, I'm okay. You did not parent me correctly. So that's just one example of the upgrade.
Yeah, finding the voice, right?
Yeah.
Finding the ability to speak. Another example of is rescuing the child, right? So you talk about finding the voice, but rescuing the child is another technique that we use, where we actually take that child back into the home, take the client back into the home where they lived in that scenario, and going and finding that child within the house, and scooping up the child, or however, holding the child's hand as you leave the house, and taking the child away to a safe place where they're loved. And it could be into their adult home, or it could be wherever the adult and child together go to, where they're both safe and loved and protected, and 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 then that adult and the inner child having that opportunity to be protected, right? To be embraced and protected, and to be told, I will always keep you safe. I will always be here for you. So significant.
So part of what I love of what we do is then when we get to this point where we've done now the upgrade, and you take them through, okay, now if the way that you used to think about yourself wants to come back, then you tell it, that's not me anymore. I'm not that 10-year-old girl who gets locked in her bedroom anymore. I am now a person who can express herself. I am now a person who can set up my boundaries and say, I don't care if you're my father, nobody will talk to me like that again. And then just say, and I am not that anymore. I now am this. And that's one of the tools that we use that I absolutely love.
And in the recording, I like to use as soon as they get out of bed in the morning, they look in the mirror and tell their reflection how beautiful they are, how loved they are, how important and how much they belong, and to tell them that within the recording. And so when they do wake up in the morning, they are telling themselves within the mirror, you're loved, you're cherished, you belong, you matter.
What a beautiful way to set up the day.
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing. Tell us more about the recording, Fran. We haven't talked about that in a while.
So the recording is basically, we take our client from we put them into a relaxed state. We have them, drop their shoulders. We have them look up and breathe in. And when you do look up into that state where you're looking up to your eyebrows, it activates the alpha brain waves. And so you're activating the subconscious mind, and there'll become the fluttering of the eyelids. And as they look up, the peace comes upon them, their jaw relaxes, they feel. Sometimes what I do is I have them breathe through and then out again, just takes a couple of several breaths. And then we walk together. I lead them in a 10, 9, 8 walk to a specific path or down a stairway. Depends whichever they choose. Sometimes they choose a path, sometimes it's stairway. And then when we get to the bottom, we get to a safe and completely a place of their choice where they can heal and relax. And within the recording, then I talk about how, you are now, if we're going to talk about the voice, you are now easily able to express yourself in all situations, and you protect your boundaries in a kind and compassionate way that still expresses who you are and what you believe to be true in a way that people understand and accept and respect you. And so the recording is based on their very words, whatever they choose to work on. And so maybe the magic wand was, I want to be able to speak in public. It's a big fear, right? Speaking in public. And so we'll take them through a scenario where they're so relaxed and love speaking in public, and they can't wait, and they feel so excited, and not a hint of anxiety, just overall excitement and exuberance to be able to get in front of a stage, get on a stage and speak, or to sing, or to have an oration. And we talk about this throughout, and it's a 15 to 25-minute recording, depending on what the client was asking for. And often, you probably have found this too, that if they listen to it at nighttime, they'll fall asleep. It's like a meditation.
Yeah.
And whether you fall asleep or not, it really doesn't matter, because the subconscious mind is still hearing, understanding, and recording it in the subconscious mind.
So I normally ask for the clients to start their day with it.
Yeah.
That's get to set up the day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's the recording is beautiful. I just think it's a beautiful way to, like you said, start the day or end the day with.
Yeah, or end the day, yes. And I believe in the subconscious mind. Sometimes I really ask that they start the day with it, because it is and not lie in a bed, because if they tell me I fall asleep every time in the evening I listen to your recording, I ask them, and where do you listen to the recording? Oh, in bed. Like, don't listen in bed. Because even though it's the subconscious mind, sit up in a chair and not with your back touching it. So it's those positive affirmations. It's the things we work on. It's the desire that they have, the outcome of what they want from the session, and using their own words and building that into a recording that you repeat once you go, what you just notice here, the relaxation first, which is the induction, which is the same as meditation. And yes, you turn those beta brainwaves from beta to theta to alpha brainwaves when you become highly suggestible. And then it goes into the frontal lobe, into the neocortex, right? Yeah, into the neocortex of your brain. And that's a new idea. And then you put some emotion in there, and they start to feel excited about, oh my gosh, I can actually feel excited about speaking in public, being on stage. I can be excited and not fearful. That's an emotion, a positive emotion. It goes into the limbic brain. And then you repeat it. You ask them to listen to that many, many times. And when they do that, it magically goes into the cerebellum. And by the time it goes into the cerebellum, it's new behavior. I love that. Well, that's when we see changes.
And once it's a new behavior, it reinforces their new belief in themselves, right? It's like, wow, I actually did get on stage. I actually did. And now they have a new belief of their own ability to do it again next time and the time after.
Right. No, amazing. So, Fran, any more insights about the inner child that you want to talk about?
I think the message is there is always hope. It doesn't matter how old you are. There is hope. We just need to find out what it is that's blocking you at this point from being who you were meant to be, who you were at the blank slate, right? When you believed yourself to be strong and independent and lovable and belonging and worthy. What's blocking you? And once we can find that block, we can work to remove it and change the story, change the outcome, change the actions that go with it.
Right. And Fran, not all people come from abuse. And not all our clients have been in what we talked about quite a bit today, have been in those narcissistic or abusive situations. But it's sometimes an event that happened and it's their interpretation of it that can completely set their life on a different course. It's like a computer program that goes haywire. Instead of setting them up for, you are brilliant, you can achieve anything you want, it makes them start to doubt themselves. And it can just be as simple as an interpretation of something that happened in their lives. And so that is when we go in and we take that inner child that's hurt and we change that interpretation for them. We help them to tell themselves a better story, a believable story, a story that they can fall in love with, that they can listen to for 21 days and walk out there a different person. So that is the beauty of exploring what is that proverbial stone in the shoe of this child.
It's a privilege.
Yeah, it is indeed. Well, thank you everybody for watching, and thank you, Fran, for being here with me today, and we will see you next time. You know where to subscribe, and thank you again for watching.
See you soon.